On my journey as a young person through school and then through university, and I saw the conflict between what I was being taught in the secular schools. There were no Christian schools in those days. There was no such thing as homeschool, and the secular universities were very pagan. When I saw that conflict, I started searching for resources and actually found different resources that gave me answers from different parts of the world. And then when I became a teacher in 1975, okay, that dates me a bit, I realised. But the first science class that I taught, the students saw my name listed as the head of the Christian group in the school. And they said, "Sir, we saw you're a Christian." I said, "Yes." "Well, how can you be a Christian when we know the Bible's not true?" "Well, how do you know the Bible's not true?" "Because of what we're taught in our textbooks about evolution and millions of years." And then a student piped up and said, "And Noah couldn't fit the animals on the ark anyway." And right then I realised these issues of evolution, millions of years, not having answers to questions like how could Noah fit the animals on the ark, it was a stumbling block to them listening to God's word in the gospel. And so I started to teach them answers, and I got known for that in the school. Some teachers got really angry at me because then the kids wouldn't believe them when they taught them some things and would question them and so on. But you know what? Despite that, and I was persecuted for that, that was fine. I saw my father stand no matter what people said about him. He was prepared to stand. And, when you look at Jesus, look, he had to actually get to the point where even the people who were supposedly his friends left him, when you think about what happened with the disciples at the crucifixion and so on. But I stood firmly on that at the schools, and I was invited to speak in some churches. In fact, my own church that we were attending in 1975 asked me to give a sermon in church. And so I decided to do it on the topic of Genesis, creation, evolution, because of what their kids had taught at school. So it was my first ever creation apologetics talk. So that's over 50 years ago, by the way. The people came out and said, "We never heard this before. We didn't know you could actually believe Genesis like that. We didn't know what to do with evolution." Then I was invited to speak in other churches. Cut a long story short, we were transferred to the city of Brisbane in 1977, and a friend of mine ran the first ever creation apologetics conference in Australia. And people saw my books and wanted to buy them, and I said to my wife, we need to do something about this, right? Like Nehemiah. And let's start a bookstore. So we started a bookstore in our house to bring those resources into Australia, and the ministry started to grow. I started to be invited to teach in different places, would travel all around the country, and got to the stage there's no way I could keep on being a science teacher in a school, public school, and do this ministry, and we had to make a decision. And there's a whole story as to how that happened, how God led us through his word and circumstances.